Welcome to 25 and Broke, where I teach you how to stop being broke financially, socially, physically, and spiritually so that you can stop being a wuss and start being a winner. Today we're discussing, well, how I survived death, how I cheated death, right? So lots of people have asked me the story. Joseph told me the story about how you cheated death. It's in one of my books. And, I'll go into it a little bit. I'm not going to reveal all the details because I made some really bad choices back then. And frankly, I don't want to put some of that out there, right? So, I'll talk about this because in a previous episode, I spoke about how to survive through 25. And the main message or lesson there was to be curious and try new things, right? That's the time to take those risks in your life at this age that you're at. Well, some of those risks that we take can be poor decisions, right? And they can lead to very dangerous consequences. So I'm going to share a story with you about that. One of the things I tried when I was in my mid-20s was I wanted to experience new things, right? Things I hadn't tried before just for the fun of it. Let me see what this experience is like. So a job I wanted to try, and this may sound dumb to some of you, but I wanted to do it, and it was my life. So I wanted to be a waiter. And I know that's dumb, but I remember I was in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I walked into this restaurant to have lunch. And I saw all these people walking around being servers and waiters in this restaurant, and there was a bunch of pretty girls there as well, so that was the motivator. And I was like, you know what, let me get a job here, because I was kind of on vacation anyway. So I went in. I didn't really need the money, but I wanted the experience and to see, is this something I would like to do? And so I went in, I think right at that lunch, and just said, hey, you hiring? And I ended up getting hired, and I became a server at this restaurant, and I tried it out, and it was fun. It was cool. It was, I like people, man. So I got to serve people, crack jokes, be a wise guy, and all that, and that part was fun. What wasn't fun was that it was kind of a senior citizens restaurant, and they didn't tip very well. So even though money wasn't the motivator, after like a great meal and everything like that and awesome service, and you leave me a quarter or 50 cents or, a couple dimes and a nickel, yeah, that wasn't too great. Anyway, that was one thing I tried. The next thing I tried in Arizona was I tried car sales. I was like, I've always wanted to sell cars. I wonder if I'm good at it. And so I went into a car dealership, some big one, on the strip of all the car dealerships. And I just went in and I said, hey, I'd like to give this a shot. Are you looking for, sales guys? What's involved, et cetera, et cetera. And I had to go through 2 weeks of mandatory training, which was paid, so that was kind of cool. They're paying me for my time, even though it was painful, and it was like 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, going through this training. But I learned the skill set. I applied it. I did it for a week and a half, I want to say. And I did a couple $1,000s in commissions. So I sold like 5 cars, I think in like the first week and a half. And I was like, okay, I can do this, but I don't like it. The part I liked was doing the car sales and again, interaction with people. I like people. The part I didn't like was standing around for 12 hours at the dealership waiting for customers to come in. And it was so funny because and kind of creepy, I guess, when a customer would finally show up and like park the car and start walking across the parking lot, like all these car dealers, salesmen would like almost like rush and bombard this person. And I was younger than all of them. They were like 50-something-year-old guys smoking cigarettes, just all stressed out. And, I was much faster, so I would just sprint across the parking lot and only get to the customers first, so I ended up getting the deals. But anyway, I didn't like that part, the standing around and doing nothing for 12 hours. So that was the second thing I tried. A third one I tried while I was out there, and this is the story I'm going to share. I tried bodyguard work. I would go to this cafe in Scottsdale. It was like a lunch cafe, and it was my favorite place, and I would meet all these bodybuilders and everything. It was like this fitness type of place, right? You go in and get your power smoothies, protein smoothies, and that was cool. But this one guy would come in and he was like this big jacked up mofo with tats all over the place. And I got to know him. We became, sort of friends, I guess. And, I just got into his business one day and I was like, yo, what do you do, man? And he's like, I do bodyguard work, and I was like, really? What's that like? And, he explained it to me, and he's like, it's not an easy gig, man. You gotta be a kind of a badass mofo. And, I was like, well, I kind of want to try that, do you think you could put in a good word? And he was like, yeah, why not? So he ended up putting in a good word. I got the job, and I won't go into too much detail about this, but I ended up working lots of late nights and everything, and doing just professional bodyguard work for certain individuals. And I would take them out and just kind of always be their shadow, that sort of thing. And I remember this one night, some guy was just lit on, PCP or something back in the day, and some kind of drug where he really didn't feel pain. And I'll get into that in a second. And ended up just being very confrontational. So I stepped in and I had to, get in this guy's face, and I had a zapper, a stun gun, whatever you want to call it. And it was like, 20, 30, 50,000 volts electric. And I ended up just, boom, zapping this guy. And, most guys would drop, like that, like bam. But not this guy. He was literally on some heavy drugs and didn't feel pain. And he literally like brushed it off like it was a mosquito bite, and then just gave me this look, like this fire in his eyes. And I was like, oh, snap. And this guy just bull rushed me. And I remember just kind of, tasseling with him and wrestling around and everything, and ended up, putting his head through a wall. And, I was tall, skinny, and wiry, but I kind of knew how to handle myself. Did some martial arts classes in college and all that, Aikido, and I pretty much just redistribute his weight and like toss him through a wall, and broke a table with him and different things. And, it got down to it where this guy outweighed me by, I'd say 80 to 100 pounds if I'm being very conservative. And he was just an angry, kind of evil individual. Like he had this darkness in his eyes. I remember that. And, he got me pinned down, and there was like a sofa cushion type, thing, couch or whatever. And he had me pinned down and face down in the cushions. And there I was, like, with him, like, straddling the back of my shoulders, holding me down and choking me, right? Face down in the cushions. And I'm literally just, like, running out of air as he's strangling me. And it was insane. And I'm going to segue for 1 second here. Back then, I was so far away from God. I was just this godless son of a gun, all self-centered, was all about me, that I didn't even think for half a second, as like my last breath is going for me and I can't get out because this guy just overpowered me. And I'm dying. I'm literally dying and feeling my air, my oxygen run out. And the thought of God, eternity, death, what's next, anything like that, my life flashing before me, nothing. Not even one thought crossed my mind. I was just fully present in that moment of like about to die. And I remember he's choking on me, and he brings his head down, and he was just this evil creature, dude. And he like whispers in my ear, and he's like, how does it feel to die like that? And I was just like, wow. And I remember I just reacted, and I jabbed 2 fingers right up in his eye there, cause it was so close to my ear. And I got him in the eye, and he kind of jolted back for half a second. And he goes, oh, you want to play like that, do you? And then he like takes his 2 fingers and he reaches around. Now, keep in mind, I'm face down in cushions being choked out. And he reaches down and he puts his 2 fingers in my right eye socket, digs them all the way into the back of my skull, kind of like dislodging and moving my eyeball, and then yanks back my skull and like pulls on it like this. And the pain that went through me, oh my gosh, never experienced anything like that in my life before. And then he released it or whatever and pulled his fingers out of my eyes. And, I don't remember too much about that, but, I remember that as my air was there was still little there. He's choking me, and somehow I got my hand, my fist or whatever around his thumb, and I just pulled on it. and I just heard pop, 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 pop. And it was like, I guess it busted his thumb or whatever. And, he didn't even make a sound, which was, again, this guy didn't feel pain, man. He was so doped up. But, the one thing that did happen was his hand, it like muscle spasmed when I popped his thumb, and it released like a half a second of his strength. And the next thing I knew, boom, I was out. I was out of his grasp. I was back on my feet, and I'm tussling with him again. And this time I had him pinned down right where the floor and the ceiling meet, right there. And I had his like neck up against the wall, and his body kind of extended out. And I had him in this like half Nelson chokehold. And I had my right hand free, and I could strike him. I remember that, and I'm looking at him, and I could end this guy, like throat shots and everything like that, which I was trained for, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, and I just couldn't take that human life, even though he was trying to take mine. And that was a very interesting situation. All I could think of is I can't hurt this guy, but I need to get out of this situation. And I remember, I released him, and I whipped out of the situation and kind of got out of the place back to my client, and, just my right eye, just blood pouring out of it all over the place, and got in the car and asked them to drive, obviously, and went back, and I quit that job that evening, and said, what the heck did I just put myself into, right? So again, that's an example, a story from my life, Joseph Warren's life, where, I was exploring, I was curious, I was trying new things, but not every new thing is meant to be tried. And I put myself in a very dangerous situation where I almost lost my life. And I look back on that now, and I know God spared me. And I thank him for that, because there was no reason why I should have walked out of that situation. None whatsoever. I was done. I was counting out, MMA, right? I was tapping out, but the guy was not releasing. And God released me. So, that was awesome. So I kind of just share that story about that. And, here's the main message for this one is when you make poor decisions, people get hurt, right? And sometimes it's you. Sometimes it's the other person. Sometimes it's both. So again, I leave you with that. I am Joseph Warren, and you were made for greatness. So stop being a wuss. Start being a winner. Make some good decisions out there today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.